All right, everybody, welcome to episode 5 of Holistic Hustle. I'm joined by
Coach Danny
and Life Coach Angel here. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying all the rest of the episodes that we've done for you. Today we're talking about
resilience.
What is resilience, Danny? What do you think that is?
Well, I forgot the definition, so I'll start with you.
Resilience is our ability to adapt and recover from adversity. It's how you bounce back. How do you bounce back, Danny?
That's a tough question, you know. You don't really bounce back at first. Like, you almost have to be in it, and you have to choose to suffer, right? You have to suffer. You have to embrace the suck, and know that it's not going to be a forever thing, right? So that's the most important thing, in my opinion. And then after that, you just you find a way to get out of it, right? And you, along the way, in order to get out of whatever difficult situation you're in, you're equipping yourself with small strategies, but you're also getting stronger, smarter, wiser along the way, which is ultimately what we should all strive for, right?
And that's by definition resilience building right there.
Mm-hmm.
Your last bounce back strengthens you for the next one.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's what it is, you know? I mean, we were talking about it as we were getting ready for this episode. What are some examples of resilient things, right? Like, we were talking about bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, before we even go into that, do you know how bamboo grows? How long it takes for bamboo to break through the ground? 3 years.
Wow.
So you got to be there nurturing and watering this thing
Before
that you plant it, before it even
you
breaks,
can even see it.
Before you even see it. Takes 3 years. You know how many people don't have that kind of patience? Or that kind of like persistency or dedication or commitment to something that they're not going to see any fruits of their work for 3 years. But once it breaks ground, it grows like crazy.
Yeah.
It grows like crazy.
I didn't know that. That's pretty crazy.
Talk about like investing in yourself. Because we're talking about resiliency, right? So when it comes to resiliency, the bamboo is strong, it's flexible, right? It bends, but it's super strong, right? So that's why it's used a lot in examples of how to bounce back from things, how to adapt, how to be flexible, how to like go through things, difficult, challenging things, right? So I was listening to this thing the other night. My wife was listening to it on the podcast, and I was just kind of like overhearing. And it was talking about resiliency. For you to be resilient, you have to be in the situation. You have to be in the suck. You have to be in the frustration. You have to be in the adversity for a while. You have to be able to feel it. You have to be in it. And then that plus overcoming it equals resiliency. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
What are some things that you've had to overcome where you feel like have helped you become more resilient?
You know, I think of it in terms of being in business, right? Like, to be a great business owner, you have to first learn, and you first have to get your reps in, right? Kind of like you would in the gym. And you're also putting yourself in a really difficult situation, and if you make it past, like, let's say a 3 or 5 year timeline, kind of like bamboo does, right? You're not going to see the fruits of your labor. You're going to struggle. You're going to doubt yourself. Other people are going to doubt you. And then once you start to kind of learn, okay, so it still sucks, but I know what to do. I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm just going to keep going. But I think that's the most critical piece is the learning. Because you could have awful things happen to you. You could be in an awful situation, or you could be in a really difficult situation. I don't want to say awful. It could be really difficult, but if you're not learning along the way, that's the first piece, and then also doing something to make it better.
Right.
That's the next step.
Right. It's the learning. What are you getting out of it? What insights are you getting out of it? How are you growing? how is this helping you? It's key.
And in life too, right?
Mhm.
It goes beyond business. Think of a time, like you guys like watching this episode. Like I want you guys to really think about a time in your life where you didn't know what was next. You were in a difficult situation, but you knew it was in the right direction.
Mhm.
So your gut told you, to just write it out.
Right. The thing about it is like we have to put ourselves in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be, like you said, we have to be willing to write it out, which means it's kind of like exposure therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You to get better at it, to be a good boxer, you have to get in the ring and get hit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's a great example.
You have to get hit.
It's like that example of like you once you get hit in the nose once, you're like okay, like that's what it feels like.
Right,
If you
right.
get hit again,
Right.
you're not gonna like flinch as hard. You're just like, okay, well I didn't die.
Right.
Let's go again.
Let's go again.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to get stronger. To take hits, you have to be hit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how your body gets stronger at receiving hits, handling hits, being able to receive them. You have to go through shit. You have to go through difficulty to be resilient. If you don't put yourself out there, if nothing happens to you, if you're not overcoming things, how are you going to be resilient?
But that kind of goes against like our natural human behavior and our human like
Like our logic.
logic, right?
Right.
Because we don't want to struggle, we don't want to suffer, but that's what it takes.
That's what it takes.
Right, that's what it takes to get a little bit better. But our mind wants to protect us. We don't have any like big time threats, right? Like,
Right.
and I mean, you never know what people are going through, but for the most part, we're not our survival
Right.
isn't at stake, right?
Right.
We're not running from a bear, from a lion.
Right.
There's different scenarios, right? Like being in fight or flight, but like our mind tends to like make up scenarios, right? And to get better, you have to kind of go into that punch.
Mhm.
Back to that boxing reference, right? So instead of like backing out, like backing out of a fight makes it
Mhm.
worse. You almost want to go into that,
Right.
and you have a better fighting chance, right?
You remind me of the difference between buffaloes and cows, how they
Mhm.
deal with storms. Have you ever heard of this?
You've told me before,
Right. But in case you haven't heard it, you probably have. But that's the big difference between buffalo and cows.
Mm-hmm.
Cows, when they see a storm coming, their natural tendency is to run away from it
Mm-hmm.
and to get away from the storm. But if the storm is coming and you're running away from it, eventually it's going to cut up to you and you're going to be in it longer. Versus buffalo run toward it. So they run towards the storm and the storm passes right by them. While they're in it, it sucks. It's a storm. But they're going to
it's
be
short
it's
term.
shorter. It's shorter. So being willing to go into it, like you're saying, let's face this, let's go into it. You're gonna get through it much quicker than if you try to avoid it or you're trying to run away from it. Which, like you said, the natural tendency is to like, ooh, I don't want to feel this pain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be in this discomfort because, again, let's face it, in society, like we don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to be challenged. We don't want to be any of that.
So you brought up a good thing earlier, right? Like being what was the term you used earlier?
A willingness to accept mediocrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mediocrity, right?
Right.
So I feel like mediocrity is like, okay, long term, just kind of surviving, getting by. But I feel like you have to choose your own way of suffering, right? Kind of suffering long term, but it's like you're still kind of getting by. It's not acutely painful, but to develop resilience,
Right.
you
Right.
have to have acute pain every once in a while, and then just push beyond that,
Exactly.
and do really difficult things.
right.
And then that one really difficult thing just gets a little bit easier with time.
Over time.
But it's like that acute exposure.
I go 100%.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something that said you got to choose your hard
Mm-hmm.
because everything's hard. But we don't like as a stereotype. We don't want to do things that are hard.
Mm-mm.
We want it to be easy. We want it to be fast. We want it to be like Like we want things to happen like yesterday.
Oh yeah.
You know, like there's a comedian that was joking about that because we're talking about Amazon Prime,
Mm-hmm.
but he says because of the way we are now, we want like Amazon yesterday.
Oh yeah.
We want things to just show up the day before. We want Amazon to know what we want before we even want it and like send it to the house like now. Like
Convenient,
now. Like
short-term
short-term,
gratification.
instant, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to do the things that are hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it, everything's hard.
Oh yeah.
You just got to choose what hard do you want. Like in our industry, particularly in your area, which is fitness training and nutrition training, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing that kind of work to better your health physically, right? It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But then doing nothing about it, it's also hard
Oh yeah.
because your health is at stake.
You're gonna suffer.
You're gonna suffer
Yeah.
one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But do you want to suffer short term for long term gain, or do you want to be chill and relax for short term in the immediacy, but suffer long term? You gotta choose your heart.
You
Everything's
pick.
hard. You gotta pick.
You pick.
You gotta pick.
You pick, like, in terms of fitness and also life. You decide whether it's gonna suck short term, or let me take it back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to decide whether you're gonna suffer from regret, which is the regret of not doing something, or you're gonna suffer from doing the dang thing that you're supposed to be doing.
Which ultimately gets you the
Mhm.
result that you ultimately want,
Yep. You're gonna suffer regardless.
regardless.
Yeah. So would you rather suffer from regret or by actually doing
Doing
the
it.
thing and being like immersed in the thing?
And the thing about it too is like resiliency. We're not born with it.
Mm-mm.
Like we're not born with resiliency. There's things that you have to do. Like one of them, we already talked about it. We have to do the thing. You have to be in the challenging situation. Like we said in the definition is, how do you adapt and recover,
Mhm.
bounce back from adversity? Which means you have to be in adversity.
And you have to get exposed to that,
You
right?
have to be exposed to that, right? But there's also other things you can do. Again, 4 of those things we can take care of here at Extend, which
Mhm.
is your physical health, right? Working out, eating well, getting your physical body in shape to deal with life, period. Because, I mean, wouldn't you agree from your experience, people that are training themselves, don't they handle life a little bit better?
It's like we talked about this,
Yeah,
and we've said it
in
every time.
every episode.
We call it what the gateway drug to
The
like
gateway
overall wellness,
The gateway drug to holistic
to
living.
holistic living. Yeah,
Right.
like, and I see this over and over again. The same people that start to prioritize their health, that can show up to the gym consistently over time, whether they feel like it or not, they gradually start to take care of other things in their life. And I've seen it go beyond like their physical fitness, like the way they show up for their families, like even like making progress in their career, because we train or we coach a lot of people that are in professional careers.
Mhm.
And it's really great to see them advance. Like, for example, I've trained a guy, and that he started just kind of like an intro. There's no intro level attorney, right, position, because they make a ton
But
of
like
money.
maybe like a first year.
First year attorney, second year,
Right.
if that. But now the guy's a partner in his office. But he
So
showed
he moved up.
He moved up, but it was delaying short-term gratification,
Mm-hmm.
showing up whether he felt like it or not.
There were some sacrifices that he had to make.
Oh yeah, and being like, I know what's best for me. I know what's gonna serve me, and I know it's gonna help me show up as the best version of myself. And those same people start to get a little bit calmer. They start to
Right.
start to consider improving their nutrition, and then after that, they start considering other things like meditation,
Mm-hmm.
journaling, and improving their spiritual
Right.
health.
Well, because the thing about it is too, like you said, like that's the perfect way to describe it, man. Like your fitness, your physical health, it is the gateway drug to the holistic life, because then we get into emotional regulation,
Mm-hmm.
being able to keep yourself pretty calm during difficult things, because you don't always want to be losing your shit every time something doesn't go your way.
You don't want to be too high or too low.
Right.
Yeah.
You get caught off in traffic and you lose your shit. Like just today, driving over here, I didn't realize that there was a 4-way stop. I thought it was like a light. And I thought like, because I had just gone through a couple of lights and I was wrapped up in the music and I thought it was a light. So I'm getting ready to go through, and there was a guy in the stop sign that technically he should have gone first. And so I like apologized to him. I like put my hand out like this, and I was like, he was like flipping me off
really
like crazy.
losing his shit.
He was losing his
Yeah.
shit. I'm like, bro, I'm not trying to cut you off. Like, it was literally my bad. And I apologized to the dude. But he doesn't have the capacity or the ability to regulate his emotions. He loses his shit. And I was just listening to a guy in a podcast yesterday. He was talking about growing up, how, particularly with men, and this could be anybody, but particularly with men, we're told traditionally men don't cry. Boys don't cry. That's a weakness. Don't be a girl, or don't be a B word, right?
Yeah.
Don't be a little, right? But then that teaches us that we have to hold it in.
Yeah.
We can't express it. We can't let it move through us. So like, how do we learn to regulate our emotions? How do we deal with the other one?
Where's the release?
Right. Where's the release? And the other one is failure. If failure is not allowed, where do we learn to deal with that? Right.
So where's the feedback if there's no failure, right?
Right. So how do we deal with disappointment? Besides just frustrating and going off on someone or going off on yourself.
Yep.
Right. We were talking this earlier about self-love and striving to be the best at whatever you're going after. So where's that fine line?
It has to be developed.
It has to be developed.
I can only speak, kind of like you said, as men. We can only speak as men because we are men. Like, we all, I feel like regardless of your situation, right? Like, you could have the best upbringing, but you still got to work on emotional regulation, right? Some people, maybe some people have a different temperament, but you learn to just stay in that middle ground.
Ride that middle wave, that neutral zone as much as possible.
And I was watching a podcast too about a guy in like his like 50s, 60s, and he's like, the guy you're seeing on this chair today with that's chill, kicking back, legs crossed, that man, that wasn't the same man that raised my children. I was a hot-headed person who always just snapped on my family. I had a really stressful job, and then I went home and just brought all that stuff with me. So that's where that emotional regulation is, right? You just kind of like pile everything up, and who do you think we take it out on the most? Right? It's the people we absolutely
our
love
loved ones.
Yeah,
the
people that adore
inner
us.
circle at home.
Yeah, we're not gonna take it out on a stranger. Maybe that guy that give you the finger took it out and probably does that with everybody.
Right. But usually, are the ones we love, the closest ones, are the ones that we take it out on, and it's not fair. They don't deserve that.
Not at all.
At all, man.
But it takes skills, right?
You have to learn those things. And it's like what we were talking about, like the idea of like, how do you deal with failure, right? If we're never taught that, we can never learn the frustration, how to deal with the frustration, how to deal with disappointment, how to regulate myself, right? We don't get to deal with that. We don't ever learn how to do that.
But you have to learn how to like feel it first.
Yes.
And be in it. Because if you skip that step, there's no, like you said, that like adaptation,
right?
To overcome adversity. If you're not feeling it, then you're not overcoming it.
And you know the funny thing is about feeling it. I was listening to this another podcast. It was talking about emotions. An emotion only lasts 90 seconds. We drag it out by the narrative that we give it, by the meaning that we assign. We keep thinking about it and like adding
the
thoughts,
rumination.
Yes, and the thoughts and the this. Yeah. And so we prolong it for hours, days, weeks. In fact,
and it just boils and boils up.
Joe Dispenza talks about it as like the difference between a thought, a feeling, a mood, a personality. Like the longer you drag it out, eventually it becomes part of your personality.
Oh yeah.
But if you were just to allow yourself, okay, let me sit here with this feeling. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. Let me let it pass, right? Let me not add thoughts to it. Let me not add, because I mean, there's times like for me where like a lot of people talk about getting triggered, because we all have some sort of like trauma of some sort. There's there's like little trauma with like lowercase t, and there's capital T trauma. Like people have been through some really traumatic shit.
Oh yeah.
But trauma's trauma. You also have to take accountability and responsibility and ownership for yourself, right? So that's where meditation comes into play. Because again, we're talking about emotional regulation. We're talking about mental health, right? And we're talking about spiritual health, right? When you learn to meditate, what you're doing is you're giving yourself time to be with your thoughts and not have a reaction to them, right? So meditation training, by the way, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, meditation is the one that hits all four. Meditation is going to have physical improvements to your physical health, improvements to your mental health, improvements to your emotional health, and improvements to your spiritual health, right? A lot of the things that we're doing, again, this is all part of what you have to do to train yourself to be more resilient. There's a domino effect. Like you were saying, start with your physical and your physical health, fitness, movement, nutrition. Eventually that leaks into emotional, mental, and spiritual. There's a domino effect. But meditation is the one that hits all four.
It covers everything.
It covers everything.
And like, I was that hot-headed dude, right? Like, there's like, I don't have that temperament to where I'm like naturally just a chill guy, which is great. I feel like that's important for people that are striving to do something worthwhile. So I don't have that naturally, but what meditation helps me do, it creates awareness. It almost makes you realize that thoughts are just passing by, and you let them go. You're not analyzing. You're not adding more. You're just like respecting it and letting it pass.
Letting it go.
And I will say, I just had a big aha moment. As you said, it hits all four pillars, right? That meditation does, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. So I went back in January for my annual physical at the doctor, right? So after he like cut my nuts and I had the cough, after that whole thing, right? No, that's outdated. But one of the things, like I had so I've been meditating for years now, right? Like, but I really got into it in this past year. Like I was able to do it a little bit longer, more consistently, and I could do it. It wasn't about just like finding the best spot, the best time. If I didn't do it at that time, it wouldn't get done. I just find it. So I did that for pretty much a straight year. So from January of last year to January of this year, my heart rate dropped by like 12 to 13, right? Where it was my resting heart rate was like I don't know, hitting 70s. It was like 60. No, it's like 58.
Nice.
I think it was actually lower than that.
It's probably your stress levels.
But it was the meditation.
Right.
I'm under way more stress than I was a year ago.
But you're more resilient now.
More resilient. But the doctor didn't. He said, "Oh, I can just tell that you've been training more on your cardiovascular health." And I was just like, "Yes." But I've also been meditating. I didn't say that. I was just
you
like,
should have said that, bro.
I just was like, oh, I'm just more of a chill dude.
You could have been educating that doctor,
right? And it's just something so simple that is so cleansing when it comes to your body, and it's almost like this is coming from a very skeptic guy, but it's almost like a very like anti-aging, like detoxifying activity you could do without buying the latest, greatest gadget.
Right. It really is. It's free.
Yeah.
And it can make so much changes for you. But the thing about it is, dude, even this process of resilience training, right? Which number one is you gotta be able to be willing to be in an adversity, in a challenging, difficult, frustrating situation, right? That's number one. You have to, number two, what you said, learn from it. Like when you find yourself in a low, you gotta draw the power that's in there, the opportunity that's in there. We were talking about this. The lesson, the blessing, the wisdom, like there's so much good in there, like that you can gain to get you to your next up. Because your next up, how the quality of your next up is going to be as good as how you handle that down.
Yep.
What did you do during that down? Right? Did you bitch? Did you complain? Did you throw your hands up in the air? Were you a victim of
Poor
it?
me.
Poor me, right?
Yeah. Victim mentality.
How did you handle that?
How'd you handle it?
That's going to determine your high when the wave comes back up, right? And then doing things to take care of your physical body, your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, right? All that takes time. It's a process.
I got a question for you, though, right? So you're a coach. Like, you're a coach, you're a teacher, husband, right? Dad. And so you're talking about doing all these things to develop resilience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how do you, like, almost like as a dad,
Mm-hmm.
so as a parent, as a friend, as a husband, how can you watch that person struggle and like pray that they get stronger and not that the situation gets better?
Well, so here's a thought, right, to answer that question. And this is a quick story.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it before, but maybe you haven't heard it. Maybe you haven't heard it. So there's a gentleman who would sell butterfly cocoons at a market.
Mm-hmm.
And every day, this little kid would go and watch him. And he would always like kind of like stare and like he wanted one. And one day, the gentleman that was selling the butterfly cocoons went up to him.
Mm-hmm.
Said, hey, you come here every week. I see you. I see your excitement in your eyes that you want one. Do you want one? If I give you one, you're going to have to do, there's some things you're going to have to do. But do you want one? And the little kid was like, yes, I want one. So he gives him one and says, okay, no matter what you see this cocoon do not mess with it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't touch it. Don't do anything to it. Just let it be. So the little kid takes it home, puts it on his nightstand. Super happy. Every day he wakes up before he goes to school, he's looking at his little cocoon, right? His little, on a pot and a little plant cocoon
Mm-hmm.
in there, right? Well, one day the cocoon started like shaking like this. He freaked out. He thought something was going on with it. So he like opened it. The butterfly came out, flapped his wings once, and then it died.
Yep.
So he goes back to the market. He's sad. The gentleman says, okay, you opened it, didn't you? Like, you helped it along. And he's like, yeah, I did. Do you realize what you did? He goes, no. By removing its struggle, by helping it along and removing its struggle, you took his ability to live his life. So there's a balance. Holding someone's hand and helping them along, and then incapacitating them, or what people call enabling them, right? You're disabling people. So you have to be really careful with how you guide somebody, what's really helping somebody, right? Versus, hey, you need to kind of figure this out. You're going to have to experience that struggle a little bit so you can flex a muscle or strengthen a muscle that you're going to need, especially with your children, to be the adult that you're going to be. Sometimes you're going to have to let them make some of those mistakes, those choices. You still have to guide them. Here are your options. Here's what's within your control. Here's what's within my control.
Yeah.
Here's how I can help you. Here's what you can do. Here are your boundaries. I always said, like, you know, when you go bowling
Mm-hmm.
and you put the bumpers.
Yeah.
Well, those bumpers, as your children grow older, they expand until they're on their own, right? You remove the bumpers and they can go down the gutter or not. Hopefully you don't. But here's the deal. What you invested in them the first 10 years of their life is what ultimately is going to carry them as an adult. That's not to say that they can't make changes as teenagers, that they can't make changes as young adults or as an adult, because as you know, we can always make changes. But ultimately what's at their core is what you invested in them, what you put in them, what they saw, what they heard the first 10 years of their life.
That was really wise. Are you a life coach or something?
Maybe. Dude,
That's
I had a
good. They're not
mentor.
ready.
I had a mentor of mine tell me once that when you try to help someone, right, and someone's falling off a cliff,
Mm-hmm.
and you extend your hand to try to help them come up, they need to be using their legs and the other hand to also come up.
Mm-hmm.
They can't be pulling you down because you're gonna fall in there with
Yeah.
them. So when someone helps you, they need to help themselves too. So that's another thing to keep in mind. What is the other person putting in
To get themselves
to
out.
get themselves out? 'Cause
Yeah.
you can only do so much, but that person wants to want the help. I often ask people in my coaching sessions, "Hey, are you ready to move past this,
Mm-hmm.
or you still need to feel this a little longer? Because if you're not ready, then that's fine. But then we don't need to be doing this. You need more time."
That's such a good point because,
Yeah.
like, in terms of like fitness and nutrition, coaching somebody, you always want to gauge, like, are you ready, willing, and able? They may not be ready, or maybe they're ready, but are
They're
they
not
willing,
willing.
and they're able? Means like the able is what we can coach them on.
Right.
That's
right.
like okay, let me equip you with the
Let me
resources.
equip you. So that's what this whole resiliency thing is.
Yeah.
It's equipping yourself to be able to handle whatever life throws at you.
But you have to be,
You have to be physically strong,
yeah,
mentally sharp and clear, emotionally resilient, and spiritually grounded.
All right, man. Anything else you want to share today?
I think that's it, man.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
That was bomb. Yeah, that was sick,
Right?
dude. Nice, dog.
That's so good. Episode 5. All right, see you in the next one.